You're watching Las Vegas 1 on Cox Cable. Live from the studios of the Las Vegas Sun and Channel 8's Eyewitness News, this is News 1 at 9.
The original Aladdin first opened back in 1966. 34 years later, it is reborn as the Las Vegas Strip's newest mega resort. Good evening, I'm Jon Purvis. Thanks for joining our special edition of News 1. The doors of the all-new Aladdin are supposed to open sometime tonight, but so far the Desert Passage shops are the only part of the resort to open. A parade of camels led tonight's grand opening ceremonies. The camels marched down Las Vegas Boulevard to the new Aladdin just before 7 this evening. Riding the camels were genies, sultans, belly dancers, all the characters necessary to recreate the Arabian Nights, which is the theme of the new Aladdin. The camel parade was only part of the opening ceremonies this evening. After all, what would the opening of the new Aladdin be without a magic lamp? And what would a magic lamp be without a real genie? In this case, Barbara Eden, who gained fame on the 1960s TV show I Dream of Jeannie. The opening ceremonies took place at the sprawling Desert Passage shopping experience. That's where News 1's Deborah Levy has been all day. She joins us live from there. Deborah, any word on how much longer before the casino will actually open?
Well, John, actually the building and fire inspectors just started going through the Aladdin Hotel Casino, so it has been pushed back several hours. We're going to get to that in a moment, but first I am inside Desert Passage. You can hear behind me a lot of activity and excitement going on. Two words to describe Desert Passage when it opened its doors at 7 o'clock tonight: energy and lots of crowds. Now, this is a shopping experience that is financially separate from the hotel casino, and the shoppers who walked through Desert Passage when the doors opened at 7 o'clock said that they were very impressed by the array of stores, many of which have never opened in this country before. And some were very impressed with the special touches, the authenticity of the experience. If Genie himself had came out of a lamp, he probably wouldn't have had a better vision for the Aladdin. From the hand-painted murals to decorated jewels, no expense was spared. And behind me, visitors right now are mulling around looking at the shops that surround Desert Passage. We are joined right now by Bob Lineback from the Clark County Fire Department to get an update on what's happening with the safety inspectors inside the hotel casino this hour. And what can you tell us?
Well, they had hoped to start about 6, and they started about 8:15. And we've got a number of fire inspectors, a number of building inspectors, as well as contractors and building officials from the Aladdin. And they're going to test every single safety system in the casino. And there was a snag with other systems before they could get those tests started.
What type of snag?
Well, it's probably what I would call an electronic rather than a mechanical. You might have heard a smoke detector if you were standing next to it, but it didn't. It wasn't articulated in the command center. That's my guess. So they started the process. It'll take 2 to 3 hours to finish if everything goes well.
And if you were to make a prediction, do you think the Aladdin is going to open this evening, midnight?
Well, I've not been involved with this kind of an activity at this late date before, but look, based upon the number of people involved and their intensity to get this done, I feel like they're going to make it.
We're going to have to wait and see. Bob Lineback, thank you for joining us again tonight.
My pleasure.
John, we're going to send it back to you. We will keep you posted if indeed the Aladdin opens sometime within this newscast. We'll send it back to you in the studio.
All right, Deborah, we will check back a little later. Now some basic facts about the Strip's newest mega resort. The new Aladdin is the only Las Vegas property to be imploded and rebuilt with the same name, the Aladdin. It spans 34 acres and cost $1.4 billion to build. It is owned by Jack Summer and London Clubs International. Park Place Entertainment, which owns Paris Las Vegas next door, also has a financial stake in the new Aladdin. There are 2,567 hotel rooms, 233 of which are suites. The Aladdin is sure to draw plenty of conventions with a 75,000 square foot convention center. But the real draw will, of course, be the casino. The casino floor alone spans 100,000 square feet, hosting 2,800 slot machines and 87 gaming tables. It takes thousands of employees, 4,000 in this case, to keep such a massive resort running. But Aladdin executives have decided to keep the resort non-union. In response, the Culinary Union is picketing tonight's grand opening. News 1's Ann Yeager joins us live from the Strip with more. Ann.
John, things are pretty calm out here tonight. Many of the people outside have made their way inside the shopping area. As far as traffic out here, it seems to still be a problem. Traffic is backed up at least a couple of blocks here, so if I were you, I'd avoid this complete area around the Las Vegas Strip. As you were mentioning, much of the excitement here happened a couple of hours ago when the Culinary Union hit the picket line.
No contract, no peace. No contract, no peace. No contract, no peace.
Armed with picket signs, the culinary union walked in front of the Aladdin Hotel with a vengeance. 2,000 union members plus Teamsters are upset the Aladdin won't sign a union contract. Some members wore red bands to symbolize their outrage, and they say they're willing to be arrested. When most of the hotels on the Strip have unionized, the Aladdin has joined the ranks of the Venetian and Imperial Palace in its decision not to do so. A culinary union spokesperson says workers need a voice, and he says he will fight to the end to convince Aladdin owners to change their minds.
We want to publicize the dispute to the community, to the community leaders, and show our outrage about what the Aladdin's doing. And hopefully the Aladdin management will hear that, and they will decide that in the best interest of their own business, best interest of the community, they should agree with a partnership with labor and gaming companies that's really allow this town to prosper and for gaming to spread all over the country.
Now, fortunately, there were no arrests from that protest tonight. Kevin Klein with the Culinary Union says he teaches union members to be very peaceful and nonviolent in their picketing, and that seemed to have worked tonight because Metro says things ran pretty smoothly there on the Las Vegas Strip. Reporting live, I'm Ann Yeager, News 1.
Good to hear. Thanks, Ann. High-stakes gaming is nothing new to Las Vegas, but it's about to be taken to another level. The exclusive London Club makes its North American debut tonight inside the Aladdin. As Andrea Bond of Channel 8 Eyewitness News reports, this high rollers club has made a high-stakes bet on Las Vegas.
You may want to take a good look. This is as close as most of us will ever get to $10 million. The game piece is just one of the attractions for high rollers at the Aladdin's London Gaming Club.
I think it's something that we've created in a town that always creates something new.
But the $10 million gaming chip is just the beginning. Founded more than 30 years ago in Europe, the London Club is catering to the high rollers' every need, from high-stakes roulette to five-star restaurants.
It is a 35,000 square foot facility that we've designed and used the concept to make customers from all over the world feel very comfortable. It's a blend of Mediterranean culture and Southern California, and it's really a beautiful, beautiful place.
With clubs in London and the Middle East, the Las Vegas London Club will be the first of its kind here in the U.S. People are expected to come from all over, particularly Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. And some of those people are actually expected to use that $10 million chip.
I can think of several people within the world, particularly a couple, in fact, one very jolly Australian and some people from the Far East that will be using this chip.
As for the rest of us, well, we may have to stick to the slots, but be prepared you won't find nickel slots here.
The London Club doesn't plan on opening any more ventures here in the United States, saying this one is about all it can handle right now. Of course, the Aladdin promises to be a dining experience you could only get from traveling the world. The melting pot of restaurants that dot the Desert Passage experience will offer foods from around the globe, and they promise to tantalize palates. International cuisine is everywhere in Desert Passage.
And if 2 of your 4 guests would like to eat Chinese or Middle Eastern and the other 2 would like to eat a European style cuisine, everybody can get a different flavor.
Many restaurants want to capture all of your senses, not only what's cooked up in the kitchen, but what you see and hear as you walk through their restaurants. As we've been telling you, the new Aladdin is not just a casino. Perhaps getting as much, if not more attention, is the Desert Passage shopping experience, which is now the Strip's largest shopping mall. News 1's Dana Drake is live in the middle of opening night crowds. Dana, what's going on?
Well, we're here in the Merchants Harbor where those massive crowds inching along behind me. We were here just hours before the doors open, and things were still a mess here in the Desert Passage, but miraculously things were clean, polished, and ready to go on time. But for some retailers, it was a tough road to get here to opening day. For the first time, Renee Benke is opening her Seattle-based specialty cookware store in Nevada. It'll be part of the new themed mega mall, Desert Passage. But getting here hasn't been easy.
It's been really almost an impossibility. Normally, the day before a store opens, we would be ready and be fluffing and polishing, but we've had to leave the center so much. Lack of organization, I suppose.
Benke says the poor organization is on the mall's part, causing her staff to work hard and fast up until the last minute.
Customer copy goes to the customer.
Just one day before the big opening, employees are busy learning the basics.
So any questions on that?
Unloading, unwrapping, and making sure everything looks just right. All amid the incessant sound of fire testing.
A little Chinese torture every once in a while with the ongoing alarms and stuff.
She'd rather work with the alarms than be kept out of the store like they were earlier in the week.
We lost about 10 hours worth of work both nights, so that puts you 20 hours behind.
Even with all of the stress, Benke's excited to be part of such a unique marketplace.
I think it's going to be a wild, exciting experience, and I think the people that come through here are going to have a great time.
Though getting to opening day has been the ultimate challenge.
But we'll be ready. Doesn't look like it, does it? We will.
Or would you like to shift those?
Oh, I'd like.
On opening day, the dream became a reality.
We're excited. We've had great reception. People are really excited to be here. All of a sudden, at about 2 o'clock, it all kind of came together.
As soon as the doors opened, Sur La Table filled with customers.
All of a sudden, you kind of forget kind of what you went through to get there, and it's kind of like, wow, look at it. It's really beautiful.
100 of the 130 stores were able to open today on time, but only 5 of the 14 restaurants did open. Reporting live, Dana Drake, News 1, back to you.
All right, looks like fun, Dana. Some perspective on the new Aladdin's impact on Las Vegas when gaming analyst Phil Hevener joins us live in the studio next. Plus, a look at some of the highs and lows for the Aladdin since its story first began back in 1963, when News 1 continues. The Aladdin is one of the older properties on the Strip. It first opened its doors 37 years ago under a different name. Paula Francis of Channel 8 Eyewitness News has more on the Aladdin's history.
It was a novel concept in 1963, a resort along the Las Vegas Strip without gambling. But the tally-ho's days were numbered. In 1966, Milton Prell bought the hotel, renaming it the Aladdin and adding, you guessed it, a casino. It was, in fact, touted as the largest casino in Nevada at the time, complete with the most modern slots.
I said it gonna set my soul on fire.
Owner Prell was good friends with Elvis Presley, so it was no surprise when the King chose the Aladdin as the site of his wedding to Priscilla in 1967.
Viva Las Vegas! Viva Las Vegas!
In the 1970s, continued growth along the Strip prompted the Aladdin to build a 20-story addition. On June 1st, 1976, the new Tower of Majesty opened. Stars on hand included David Soul, Jerry Vale, Tina Louise, and one person who's more famous now than he was then.
Hey, I really think it's quite a turnout. It's got a great Arabian Nights theme, and it's an enchanting place to be.
3 years later, suspicions of organized crime involvement in the Aladdin were confirmed with the conviction of 3 resort executives as fronts for the mob. The following year, with the property in turmoil, the Gaming Control Board ordered it shut down.
I feel terrible. I don't have a job now. You know, how am I going to pay my bills?
We're hoping it won't be closed that long. I don't believe they'll keep 3,000 people out of work that long.
That proved correct. It was crooner Wayne Newton who came to the rescue. Newton and business partner Ed Torres bought the resort for $85 million. 3 months later, the doors reopened, and it was the employees who were saying "Danke Shane," but more financial troubles lay ahead. The Aladdin filed for bankruptcy in 1984 and again in 1989. Current owner, Jack Summer, bought the ailing property in 1994. He paid $80 million, $5 million less than Wayne Newton and Ed Torres had paid 14 years earlier. By 1997, the Summer family had decided to close the place and rebuild from the ground up. The lights went out for the last time on November 25th. The following spring, explosives experts placed about 300 pounds of dynamite inside the closed hotel. April 27th was Demolition Day.
And oh, by the way, I get to push the button. How cool is that? I pushed the button tonight.
Joan London's finger triggered a series of explosions. Gary and I watched from just across Harmon Avenue.
starting to see the word dust come through on the Aladdin sign.
There were prophetic words on the marquee that night more than 2 years ago. They read, "Out of the dust, Aladdin arises anew." Here to offer his perspective on the new Aladdin is gaming analyst Phil Hevener with Las Vegas Style magazine. Phil, you said tonight in many ways is a momentous occasion. Why?
It is. It's sort of like we're hearing the last few notes in a great symphony, because never in the history of the Strip has there been as much activity, as much money spent, as many things happening as there have been in roughly the last 22 months. In this period of time, we've opened something like 5 new resorts. The Aladdin is the 5th, and it's opening tonight. I wonder if we'll ever see another period with so much activity, so much money being spent, so many things being created in such a short period of time.
Yeah, if each one is worth about $1 billion or more, we're talking over $5 billion just in the last 2 years.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, Aladdin $1.4 billion, Bellagio $1.5 billion, and MGM spent roughly the equivalent of that on just improvements.
So you think we'll never see a building spree quite this size again?
I wonder if we possibly can. Certainly, we're pointed towards some big things out there. Steve Wynn is going to shortly close a DI and begin building there. We know that MGM plans to do something very impressive just across the street from the Aladdin on that property there. Certainly, there's a lot of plans being talked about, but nothing apparently in the works that quite matches the scope of what we've seen in the last couple of years.
I'd like to ask you a little bit about the lifespan of these new mega resorts. You know, I mean, in old resorts here in Las Vegas, 30 years was an old resort here. Are these resorts going to be old 30 years from now, or have we finally gotten to a point, maturity on the Strip, where some of these properties are going to stand the test of time for half a century, even a century down the road? What do you think?
I think that you can look at the new resorts and get a sense of which ones seem to have the sort of permanence, the sort of feel that will still be important 100 years from now. But the important part of the entertainment business is that it's a work of art and constant happening. Which means that whatever we were 5 years ago, does Resort X still have the pizzazz, the excitement that it takes today to generate good business? And that rather than the fact that they're simply 10, 20, 30 years old is what brings about most of the implosions. You've got to, at some point, with many of these places, start over again and create something new.
I know as long as Las Vegas Strip has been around, there's been concern, have we finally overbuilt? Have we?
No. No, I think they'll continue to create.
And let's talk about the next phase in Las Vegas's growth, especially on the Strip. Are we now going to grow up as opposed to out? In other words, with Steve Wynn's plans for high rises, we're now seeing high-rise condos come up on the Strip?
I think so. Steve Wynn is going up rather than out, although he has plenty of property at the Desert Inn, because in part he wants to create a facility, a resort with an intimate feel to it. So he's going 60 stories tall. But also Steve Wynn and MGM, you know, would appear to own, and then there's Park Place and Harrah's, own a good bit of the property that's there and available. Of course, you know, then there's the north end of the Strip. I think we'll see a good deal of activity there in the next couple of years, particularly as appetites are whetted by all the things that Wynn and others may do.
Do you think we'll eventually see downtown Las Vegas and the Las Vegas Strip come together?
I wonder what's going to happen to downtown Las Vegas.
Are you concerned?
Well, downtown Las Vegas has certainly showed some increases, but you know, downtown Las Vegas has a different personality. You know, there's a lot of old curmudgeons in charge of properties down there, individual owners who go back to the so-called old days. In many cases, they simply don't have the wherewithal to create the sort of facility that can compete with a new Aladdin, a new Paris, a new Bellagio.
Now, you're not a curmudgeon, but you have been around for over 20 years covering the Las Vegas Strip. Talk about the Aladdin and its history on the Strip, its significance.
The Aladdin, I first visited the Aladdin in the 1970s, and there was a great deal of activity. There was a sense of excitement, things happening in the casino. But the unfortunate aspect of the Aladdin's history is so much of the attention it's received in recent years as a result of regulatory issues, federal cases alleging illegal ownership and control in places like Detroit. And
Talk a little bit about the current owner, Jack Summer. We don't hear much about him like we hear about, Steve Wynn or Sheldon Adelson or Kirk Kerkorian. Who is he?
Jack is comes from a family that's done a great deal of real estate development. His father was a real estate developer. He is part of the so-called Summer Trust. But Jack is not involved in the actual operation of the Aladdin. The trust owns the Aladdin, but Jack is not going to be involved, I understand, in its actual operation.
But he does live here in Las Vegas, right?
He does live here in Las Vegas, and he's developing on the west side.
Phil, it's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Of course, entertainment is a big part of the Aladdin. Bing Crosby to the Beach Boys have played at the original Aladdin, and the superstars are going to just keep on coming. Kevin Janison of Channel 8 Eyewitness News gives us a sneak peek at the only remaining piece of the old Aladdin, the Performing Arts Center.
On April 27, 1998, the walls came tumbling down at the Aladdin. But as the smoke cleared, an old friend remained standing. While the glitter had faded after 22 shining years on the Strip, the Theater for the Performing Arts was spared and its history intact.
Las Vegas doesn't have a lot of deep roots in history, but certainly everyone I've spoken to has a story about this, about how the building came about. Some show they saw here from the back row with a girlfriend when they were 16 and that kind of thing. And it's nice to be able to bring that back.
The face of Las Vegas entertainment changed in July 1976 when the Aladdin brought the city its largest performance venue, a 7,000-seat acoustically perfect music and theater arena. Superstar Neil Diamond inaugurated the facility with his first ever performance in Las Vegas. During its heyday, the theater would play host to acts ranging from Sinatra and Martin, Gladys Knight and the Pips, to Alice Cooper and the Scorpions. Over the years, the Aladdin also opened its doors to the pomp and circumstance of thousands of Clark County's graduating seniors. But time took its toll on the once state-of-the-art concert hall.
It was a horror. First time I saw this facility was October 26th of last year. I came in just to do a walkthrough, take a look at it as we were doing the design phase of the project. And there was still a mud line about 2.5 feet up the stage walls from where the flood had hit 2 years ago, and there was no power to the sump pumps. And all the seats were out, the stage floor was just destroyed and buckled, and the room was in pretty rough shape.
Lawrence Camp, theatrical consultant at the new Aladdin, says the original plan was to save the structure. But things changed.
The intent was to maintain it originally, but the closer people looked at it and the deeper they got into the building, the less was worth maintaining. So we essentially replaced it all.
While if everything old is new again on the Strip, the same holds true for the Theater for the Performing Arts. A $25 million floor-to-ceiling facelift will return the musical venue into a high-tech event center.
And it's typically the high-end touring rig. This is what bands want to take out on the road if they can afford it. And we worked very hard to maintain our budget for this, and we've succeeded in essentially the best sound system in Las Vegas.
Latin singing sensation Enrique Iglesias will reopen the Theater for the Performing Arts on August 19th. Iglesias is the son of a Las Vegas regular, Julio Iglesias, and he also has a #1 hit, Be With You. A number of other concerts are already scheduled, including the heavy metal group Iron Maiden, the Guess Who, and a return visit from the Scorpions. The Democratic National Convention ended tonight with Al Gore accepting his party's presidential nomination. You'll hear what the vice president told delegates, and also hear from Nevada Senator Harry Reid a little later. But first, we'll preview your weekend weather forecast when News 1 continues. Kevin Janison from Channel 8 Eyewitness News is here now with weather and some unusual colors around sunset tonight out west.
Yeah, pretty wild. You know, people who have lived here for a number of years know that every once in a while, about a year and a half or so, they launch a giant rocket out of Vandenberg Air Force Base. And if they do it around sunset, this is what the sky looks like from the Las Vegas Valley. A lot of people were calling, what the heck is going on? It happens every single time. We've seen this probably, well, I'd say on average about every year and a half. And what happens is the contrail coming from the rocket, which by the way was a classified defense missile, the contrail, the ice crystals coming out of that contrail are bent by the rays of the setting sun. If they launch right in the middle of the day, you'll see it go up.
but you'll never see that prism-like color shape. Pretty wild out there. A lot of calls are made for a beautiful, albeit strange, but certainly a wonderful sky. How about some real-time neighborhood weather? We'll take it back to the Desert Passage, site of our latest neighborhood weather station. We're now up to 26, covering not only the valley but southern Nevada. Temperature there on the Strip, 89 degrees, humidity at 25%, and the breeze generally light now out of the east-northeast, and now it's not windy at all. Here are some of the temperatures in the valley right now, as warm as 98 over the south end near Eastern and Charleston, also up near Cary and Hollywood, 97 in North Las Vegas, 95 in Green Valley, Summerlin checking in at 88 degrees. It's 64 on the mountain, 89 at the Red Rock Visitors Center, and the Lake Mead Marina giving us a reading of 99. Humidity-wise, we've got plenty of that. Still a sticky air mass with some undesert-like humidity values at or above 30%, including Overton and the mountain. And here in the valley, relative humidity values ranging anywhere from about 21 to 27%, again, depending on your neighborhood location. The highs today, we had 102 in Summerlin, warming to 110 in Green Valley, 106 on the northeast side, 104 down near Eastern and the St. Rose Parkway. Outside the valley, 76 on the mountain, all the way up to 111 in Laughlin. At McCarran today, the top temperature was 102, a degree shy of normal, 78 for the morning low, so another muggy start to the day. We'll probably have one more humid morning. But when the showers and thunderstorms tried to fire up today, they were unable to make it into the valley, unlike yesterday, where they popped up over the mountains and staggered on in town. Today, we were watching these areas down by Prim because the flow was generally to the northeast, but they just could not get going. As a result, humidity, but no rain. And in fact, we're seeing more of a pattern of rain going from the, wind moving from the southwest toward the northeast. There's drier air back here in California, and this drier air will slide into southern Nevada. In fact, I think you'll notice a considerable change, maybe not as much tomorrow, but by the time we get to the weekend, less humidity, although we'll have some of those afternoon breezes too. Here's your forecast. First, for the remainder of tonight, mostly clear. We might have a cloud or two, or a contrail or two. 79 degrees for the low temperature with a light breeze. Then tomorrow we're looking for a high of 103. We'll just call it partly cloudy. Can't rule out the possibility for a thunderstorm south or east of the Las Vegas Valley, but we don't believe we'll see any in town tomorrow. And your 7-day extended forecast. Breezy afternoons beginning Saturday, probably going into Sunday as well. Lots of sunshine Sunday and Monday. Then a little moisture, a few more clouds will return by the middle of next week, maybe even a slight chance for a thunderstorm. But how about these low temperatures getting down into the 70s? We like to see that. That is your 7-day forecast. Now for more news, here's John.
Thank you, Kevin. Accepting his party's nomination as president, Al Gore tells the nation what he'll do if elected. Nevada Senator Harry Reid also addressed the Democratic convention. Hear what both men had to say when News 1 returns. Hi, I'm Jon Purvis, and this is your Beyond the Neon event schedule, brought to you by your Southern Nevada Lincoln Mercury dealers and the City of Las Vegas. Family Movie Night in the Park will be held Friday, August 25th at the Mirabelli Community Center. If you'd like to learn more, just call 229-6359. Pre-registration for Mommy and Me classes is happening Monday, August 18th at the Stupak Community Center. The classes will be held on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Call 229-2488 for details. Surf the net for free at the West Community Center. The new computer lab is now open to the public. Stop by or call 229-5085 for more information. Free legal counsel and assistance for seniors ages 60 and over is now being offered. Please call 229-6596 for an appointment Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Or if you need more information on any of these events, just call the City of Las Vegas Department of Leisure Services at 229-6297. The Democratic National Convention came to a close tonight with their top man making his acceptance speech. Tipper Gore introduced her husband Al tonight. The vice president took the opportunity to reintroduce himself to the American people.
I say to you tonight, we've got to win this election because every hard-working American family deserves to open the door to their dreams. Not something that just happens to us. It's something that we make for ourselves together. So to the young people watching tonight, I say this is your time to make new the life of our world. We need your help to rekindle the spirit of America. Believe in our country. We believe in you. And I ask all of you, my fellow citizens from this city, that marked both the end of America's journey westward and the beginning of the new frontier. Let us set out on a new journey to the best America, a new journey on which we advance not by the turning of wheels, but by the turning of our minds, the reach of our vision, the daring grace of the human spirit. Yes, we have our problems, but the United States of America is the best country ever created and still, as ever, the hope of humankind. But as Americans, we share in the privilege and challenge of building a more perfect union. I know my own imperfections. For example, I know that sometimes people say I'm too serious, that I talk too much substance and policy. Maybe I've done that tonight. But the presidency is more than a popularity contest. It's a day-by-day fight for people. Sometimes you have to choose to do what's difficult or unpopular. Sometimes you have to be willing to spend your popularity in order to pick the hard right over the easy wrong.
Gore also used his speech to promise to fight for ordinary people to improve education, health care, and retirement. Nevada Senator Harry Reid, who's also Democratic whip in the U.S. Senate, got a primetime spot at tonight's convention. In his speech, Senator Reid compared the Republican and Democratic presidential candidates.
George Bush says he's an environmentalist. If he says so, it must be true because George Bush is a decent man. I can only regret that someone with such high environmental standards allowed his state, the state of Texas, to reach the point where last year it was the third worst in the country for toxic water pollution. And Houston, Texas leads the nation. It's the smog capital of our nation. Nor can I understand why such a committed environmentalist would allow his big oil company contributors to drill in the fragile environment of the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. And he won't commit to stop energy companies from dumping their nuclear poison in our beautiful Nevada high desert. Al Gore has made that commitment to Nevada and to the nation.
We turn now to Las Vegas One's political analyst Jon Ralston for his perspective on the Democratic convention. Let's start with what Senator Reid had to say. Earlier today I was talking with you and you called him the Democratic Party's attack dog. Was he doing that tonight?
Yeah, but he was doing that. He was going after George Bush very sarcastically. What I thought was great, though, was the juxtaposition there. You know, if they put Reid next to Gore, Gore really would look like a live wire. I mean, that was good timing. I mean, Harry is such a stiff up there when he gives a speech, but he does have all the rhetoric down, and that's what he came out there to do, is to go through the environmental and education record of George Bush in Texas. And so, he was the attack dog.
Earlier on Eyewitness News, Senator Reid in a live interview said before Vice President Al Gore's speech that the Vice President has to either hit a home run or a triple tonight. Do you think he did that with his speech?
You know, I read through the entire speech, and it really was a substantive speech. Now, Gore is not the best speech maker. He's not nearly as inherently likable as George Bush. George Bush is much more personable. I'm not sure that Senator Reid is right. I think that Al Gore might have had to have more times at bat than he had tonight to actually catch up. You know, there's some evidence that they're not even getting a bump out of this convention, that he's actually lost some ground. I think the Electoral College doesn't look too good for Gore. I think he's really going to have to hope that Bush makes a mistake in the debate to win this race.
Al Gore did take some time out of the convention this week to make a statement about nuclear waste. How significant is that for Nevada?
I thought that statement was as empty as George Bush's statement for this reason. He basically said that he would veto the bill that had interim storage in it and that he wouldn't lower radiation standards. We already knew that because that's what the Clinton administration's position was. We assumed that he would back up the Clinton administration's position. Now, what the Democrats rightly pointed out, though, John, is that George Bush has not taken a position on those two fundamental issues, interim storage and lowering radiation standards. The Bush's allies here can't seem to explain why they can't get anything out of Bush. They've come up with all kinds of different explanations. As I've said before, George Bush is a total nightmare on nuclear waste, but the real difference is only in a matter of the timeline. Nuclear waste will come here faster with George Bush, but it looks like with Al Gore, he supports the permanent study, permanent repository. It'll probably come here with him, too.
How do both parties, Democrats and Republicans, position themselves to win in November? What do they think is going to help them win?
Well, it's interesting. You saw Gore hit all the high notes tonight that he wants to hit, with the biggest one being, and you mentioned this, the powerful versus the people. He's going to portray George Bush, and Harry Reid mentioned this, big oil companies. He and Dick Cheney are both have big oil connections, so they're going to do that. You also saw Al Gore tonight talking about the two big things for the Democrats this year: prescription drug benefits and the Patient Bill of Rights. Those things pull, they're skyrocketing for the Democrats. The other interesting thing you saw Al Gore do tonight was he did a whole section kind of talking about how great Bill Clinton is, and then he says, "I'm my own man," so he wants to distance himself from Clinton. And then the real subtle one was how he and his wife talked about they had some qualms about the Vietnam War, but he decided to go anyhow. No, he was only a reporter there, and he does admit that he wasn't exactly on the front lines, but George Bush didn't serve. I think they're going to try to play that up too.
And on a statewide level for Nevada, this is an important election, isn't it, with reapportionment right around the corner?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's interesting, too, because of how the issues of gaming and nuclear waste, we've talked about this before, Bush is much worse than Gore, and yet Bush is crushing Gore here in Nevada. Lyndon Johnson and every Democrat since Lyndon Johnson won in Nevada until Bill Clinton won twice. Really, the only reason Bill Clinton won in Nevada is because there was a third-party candidate named Ross Perot both times. It really looks like Bush is going to clean Gore's clock in Nevada. That's very frustrating to the Democrats. They're very worried, as you said, because it's going to hurt them up and down the ticket.
Jon Ralston will check in again soon.
All right, John.
We've been talking a lot tonight about the new Aladdin, but the old Aladdin had some special moments of its own, like the day a king got married at the hotel. We'll explain when News 1 continues, and we'll give you another update on tonight's grand opening festivities at the Aladdin. Coming up.
The Henderson Home News Boulder City News Update is brought to you by Ben Stetman Hyundai in Henderson, of course.
We're going back out to the Desert Passage shopping experience where Dana Drake is standing by live. Dana, I understand a storm has rolled in.
That's right, John. To explain how lavish this mall is, take a look behind me. We've got a rain shower and a storm coming in here for these people. It happens every 20 minutes. Take a look. As you can see, the crowd is just loving this, and they keep coming every 20 minutes to see it. They're still shopping. They're still enjoying this place. It's going to go on until midnight, and we'll be actually out here and bringing more to you tonight at 11. John, thanks a lot. Back to you.
Virtual reality. Thanks a lot, Dana. Las Vegas is known for having lots of chapels along the Strip for weddings at a moment's notice. But at the old Aladdin, room number 246 became famous for hosting a wedding that may stand out in Las Vegas history as the most famous nuptials of them all. Gary Waddell of Eyewitness News explains.
It really looked in love. They were both nervous. She would blush and he would blush.
But I can't help falling in love with you.
Room 246 of the Aladdin is just an ordinary hotel room, but it was a special place on May 1st of 1967.
This was a regular room rented every day, and I would say virtually no one that stayed in it knew that Elvis Presley was married here.
In the 60s, it was the domain of the Aladdin's owner, Milton Prell. Back then, it was the nicest room at the hotel, but today, nothing less than a tower suite would be fit for the king.
I would imagine that this room was acceptable, but it certainly wouldn't have been the one I'd chosen today.
The suite was redecorated 6 months ago to be used as a backdrop for an Entertainment Tonight story about a new Elvis book. The co-author, Marty Lacker, was the best man at Elvis's wedding.
We didn't like, of course, any of the colors, but the room is original.
The walls were torn apart to find its 1960s wallpaper. The paintings were stashed away in a file cabinet, and the candelabras, archway, and shag carpeting were all rebuilt from black and white wedding photos.
We didn't want a museum. We didn't try and collect a lot of Elvis artifacts. There are no guitars or old suits of his. The only thing that we have over any other exhibit that contains anything about Elvis is that Elvis was married to Priscilla one time, and it was right here.
Elvis's manager, Colonel Tom Parker, organized the wedding. Only a dozen people attended the top-secret ceremony. Then Elvis and bride Priscilla walked through the pool area to go to a champagne breakfast reception. David Morales worked as a waiter at the $10,000 party. He was just 17 years old.
They brought everything in. They wouldn't let us out. It was like a big secret type thing, and we're like, gee, was the president coming in or something? We didn't know.
Then the guests of honor appeared.
Really, we're just like peeking through the curtains to watch him. Wow, it's the king, yeah. He reminded me like John Wayne, but with like the hair was all slicked back.
The couple posed for the cameras. They showed off Priscilla's ring and cut the cake.
It was like electricity. It was like nothing I ever felt before in my life.
Morales and his fellow waiters even posed for a picture with the newlyweds. Then the couple disappeared.
They had like musicians going around, you know, playing, and then it was like poof, you know, they were gone.
But you can't help falling in love with the memories.
It was great. It really was. Something I can tell my children about and my grandchildren.
We'll take you back out to the Las Vegas Strip's newest mega resort, the Aladdin, when News 1 continues. And later we'll introduce you to a Las Vegan who became the ultimate high roller, a trillionaire, at least for a little while today. Well, a big disappointment tonight for many visitors and certainly for casino executives as the new Aladdin is still not open. With an update on the safety inspections going on right now, we turn things over to Deborah Levy, who is live at the Desert Passage shopping experience. Deborah.
Well, John, you know, they got about 2 hours of a late start, so the earliest they'll probably open the Aladdin could be 11 o'clock tonight. But certainly thousands of people enjoying the Desert Passage shops below me. They're wandering around, just enjoying the experience. In fact, many tourists said their vacation wouldn't have been complete without experiencing the Aladdin firsthand.
High-energy entertainment and plenty of crowds wandered, gawked, or were carried, becoming the first to experience the new Desert Passage at Aladdin. Some waited hours to get in.
Tight waiting like cattle out there.
We waited about a half an hour to an hour out in front there by the terrace, and a lot of crowd, beautiful.
Even Binion prosecutor David Roger was curious.
This is a beautiful place. They put tons of money in it. This is going to be a centerpiece for Las Vegas.
60,000 people are expected to visit Desert Passage every day, wandering the streets of the largest shopping mall on the Strip. Some not wanting to buy, but just take in the architecture and detail.
It's beautiful, the art design, the building, it's gorgeous.
And it certainly is beautiful. Now again, just to give you an update, the fire and building inspectors are inside the Aladdin Hotel Casino this hour. They were supposed to start their inspections around 6 o'clock, but there was apparently some sort of a problem inside the Desert Passage, so they had to come over here, fix the problem, and then they got about a 2-hour late start checking out the hotel casino. But again, a very exciting evening here at Desert Passage. Thousands of people are below me checking out the shops. And John, just so you know, the shops are open until midnight, so you still have time to come check them out yourself.
Okay, I'll have to come out there if I can beat the traffic. I don't know. And outside the Aladdin and Desert Passage, thousands of folks are waiting to get inside the Aladdin when it actually opens. That's where our Ann Yeager is standing by live out on the Strip. Ann, what's going on?
Hi, John. Well, things are definitely picking up out here in front of the Aladdin Hotel. Traffic is starting to pick up as well. 2 lanes are still cut off in front of the hotel, but fortunately cars are speeding up and pedestrian traffic is running smoothly. Earlier, it was a mess out here. The Culinary Union was protesting. About 2,000 protesters decorated the front of the hotel. There was music blaring in the Aladdin from the speakers. Fortunately, there were no arrests. Now, we are hearing some new information that the earliest that the casino could be opening is around 10 o'clock. We talked to people outside who said they were really disappointed that the casino wasn't open around 7 o'clock. We talked to people who stayed at the old Aladdin prior to the implosion in 1998, and they were really looking forward to going inside and seeing what the casino looked like. Fortunately, they have a chance to see what it looks like on the outside, and they said, boy, what a difference it was from the old Aladdin to the new Aladdin. Reporting live, I'm Ann Yeager, News 1.
All right, thanks a lot, Ann. And News 1 will continue right after this. Kevin Janison from Channel 8 Eyewitness News is here now with weather and some unusual colors around sunset tonight out west.
Yeah, pretty wild. You know, people who have lived here for a number of years know that every once in a while, about a year and a half or so, they launch a giant rocket out of Vandenberg Air Force Base. And if they do it around sunset, this is what the sky looks like from the Las Vegas Valley. A lot of people were calling, what the heck is going on? It happens every single time. We've seen this probably, well, I'd say on average about every year and a half. And what happens is the contrail coming from the rocket, which by the way was a classified defense missile, the contrail, the ice crystals coming out of that contrail are bent by the rays of the setting sun. If they launch right in the middle of the day, you'll see it go up, but you'll never see that prism-like color shape. Pretty wild out there. A lot of calls are made for a beautiful, albeit strange, but certainly a wonderful sky. How about some real-time neighborhood weather? We'll take it back to the Desert Passage, site of our latest neighborhood weather station. We're now up to 26, covering not only the valley, but southern Nevada. Temperature there on the Strip, 89 degrees, humidity at 25%, and the breeze generally light now out of the east-northeast, and now it's not windy at all. Here are some of the temperatures in the valley right now, as warm as 98 over the south end, near Eastern and Charleston, also up near Cary and Hollywood. 97 in North Las Vegas, 95 in Green Valley, Summerlin checking in at 88 degrees. It's 64 on the mountain, 89 at the Red Rock Visitors Center, and the Lake Mead Marina giving us a reading of 99. Humidity-wise, we've got plenty of that. Still a sticky air mass with some undesert-like humidity values at or above 30%, including Overton and the mountain. And here in the valley, relative humidity values ranging anywhere from about 21 to 27%, again, depending on your neighborhood location. The highs today, we had 102 in Summerlin, warming to 110 in Green Valley, 106 on the northeast side, 104 down near Eastern and the St. Rose Parkway. Outside the valley, 76 on the mountain, all the way up to 111 in Laughlin. At McCarran today, the top temperature was 102, a degree shy of normal, 78 for the morning lows, so another muggy start to the day. We'll probably have one more humid morning. But when the showers and thunderstorms tried to fire up today, they were unable to make it into the valley, unlike yesterday, where they popped up over the mountains and staggered on in town. Today, we were watching these areas down by Prim because the flow was generally to the northeast, but they just could not get going. As a result, humidity, but no rain. And in fact, we're seeing more of a pattern of rain going from the, or excuse me, wind moving from the southwest toward the northeast. There's drier air back here in California, and this drier air will slide into southern Nevada. In fact, I think you'll notice a considerable change, maybe not as much tomorrow, but by the time we get to the weekend, less humidity, although we'll have some of those afternoon breezes too. Here's your forecast. First, for the remainder of tonight, mostly clear. We might have a cloud or two, or a contrail or two. 79 degrees for the low temperature with a light breeze. Then tomorrow we're looking for a high of 103. We'll just call it partly cloudy. Can't rule out the possibility for a thunderstorm south or east of the Las Vegas Valley, but we don't believe we'll see any in town tomorrow. And your 7-day extended forecast. Breezy afternoons beginning Saturday, probably going into Sunday as well. Lots of sunshine Sunday and Monday. Then a little moisture, a few more clouds will return by the middle of next week, maybe even a slight chance for a thunderstorm. But how about these low temperatures getting down into the 70s? We like to see that. That is your 7-day forecast. Now for more news, here's John.
Thank you for joining News 1. We leave you tonight with another live look at the Las Vegas Strip's newest mega resort, the Aladdin.